No Davante Adams, no Maxx Crosby, no problem. The Raiders still get the victory. How did they do it? That's coming up on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for September 30th, 2024.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast to get the latest edition of the show as soon as it becomes available. And as always, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you know we appreciate that. The show continues to grow each and every day, and that's because of your support and the job my man Ari does each and every day, making sure we're on YouTube, we're looking good, we're sounding good. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up on Twitter as well, at your boy Q254. And you know we got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Your calls and texts are coming up at segment number 3. And as you can imagine, after the Raiders picked up the 20-16 victory over the Cleveland Browns and improved to 2-2, a lot of really good calls and texts for segment number 3. So plenty of feedback. We'll get as much in as possible. Segment number 2, I normally hand out game balls, but I'm going to do a little bit of a shift today, only because the way that the Raiders ended up getting the victory on Sunday and how impressed I was with a certain select amount of people and certain guys on the team that really kind of stood out to me. I'll explain what I mean coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, just news and notes, really just kind of going over the game and what stood out to me the most. Again, the Raiders get the 20-16 victory over the Cleveland Browns and improve their overall record to 2-2 on the season. We'll get right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. I'll tell you more about them later on in the show, but let's go ahead and jump right into it. I like to look at some of the numbers that stood out to me in the game and what kind of led to the Raiders getting the 20-16 victory over the Browns. And, you know, at first, the game started off, it didn't look good. Right, the Raiders gave up 10 points. They spotted the Browns 10 points before they went on a 20-0 run. Right, the Raiders went on a run, 20 unanswered points until, well, Zamir White fumbled late in the game, and the Browns were able to take it back to the house for 6, and that's how they ended up with their 16 points. But at first, early in the game, didn't look like the Raiders were clicking defensively, as, again, they spotted the Browns 10 points. Offensively, they were having some 3-and-outs. Brock Bowers had a big drop that could have gone for a big play. Gardner Minshew had DJ Turner wide open down the field and overthrew him. And it was one of those. I was tweeting out some of the big plays that happened during the game, and I said, well, it looks like it's just going to be one of those days. So I didn't really feel too good about it. And then the Raiders finally started getting things going. They were able to establish a run game. Something we've talked about for 3 weeks. Well, now 4 weeks, actually. Talked about it every single week of the season and even in the preseason and in training camp, how important the run game was going to be. Well, the run game offensively was the MVP for the Silver and Black. They ran for 152 yards on 29 carries, and they had guys not just Alexander Mattison and Zamir White running the ball. They had DJ Turner running the ball. They had Trey Tucker running the ball. Both those guys scored touchdowns. Brock Bowers was running the ball. There was guys that were just getting their hands on the ball, and they were running the rock. They were trying to find any way they could to establish the run game. And again, 29 carries, 152 yards. Alexander Mattison, 5 carries for 60 yards. 5 for 60. This dude did not touch the ball a whole lot, but when he did, they were very effective. And there was times when it was second and long, third and long, and they're picking up, 10, 11 yards on the ground. They were finally able to get some push from the offensive line, so you got to give a big shout out to Colton Miller. Cody Whitehair played a role in that. Andre James played a role in that. JPJ, DJ Glaze, side by side played a role in that. Andrews Pete would be the eligible offensive lineman, even though you knew when he was in there, he wasn't going to be catching any passes. So 99% of the time, it's going to be a run play when you see him go in there and check in as an eligible, offensive lineman, eligible receiver. But they did throw it off that play one time, and it was a quick pop pass to Jacoby Myers that picked up a couple yards, but then it was a pass interference penalty, so they ended up getting the first down anyway based off that pass interference. But, they had the jumbo package in there. They were trying to do anything they could to be able to run the rock, and they did. And Zamir, 17 carries, 50 yards. Obviously, that's not very good. He had one run at the end of the first half that looked like it could have gone the distance, but it was basically a shoestring tackle. But he's just still off. And then he had a play on 3rd and 1 the Raiders really needed to pick up this first down. Was it 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 3? I think it was 3rd and 3. Yeah, it was 3rd and 3, and they really needed to pick up a first down to keep the drive going late in the game as they were trying to salt the game away. And he gets on the outside, doesn't pick up any blocks. It didn't look like it was going anywhere anyway, but then he fumbles the ball, and the Browns take it to the house, and they get a scoop and score. And then they missed the extra point, which ended up being huge. They missed the extra point, and you see the score, 20-16. Well, the Browns ended the game down by the Raiders' end zone, right? And so on 4th and 3, they had to go for it because they had to get a touchdown to win the game, and they didn't get it. Charles Snowden was able to sack him. Him and who was it, Janarius Robinson? No, it was Chason, Clavon Chason, who the Raiders just picked up not too long ago. They were able to collaborate, even though Charles Snowden was the one that got credit for the sack, but they were able to collaborate on that 4th and 3. But my point is, the whole reason I'm even bringing that up, if they don't miss that extra point, they kick a field goal and tie the game. And who knows what happens in overtime, right? I mean, the Raiders weren't going to have enough time to get down the field and try to score anything. So who knows what would have happened. But because they missed that extra point, they had to go for it on 4th and 3, and the Raiders came up with a big play. But that, for me, was huge. 152 yards, 29 carries, 2 touchdowns on the ground. DJ Turner, Trey Tucker, Madison, 5 carries for 60 yards. Zamir, not so good, 17 carries, 50 yards. I'm sure that Alexander Madison's going to have a bigger role moving forward, starting next week in Denver. And then Gardner Minshew throwing the ball, 14 for 24, 130 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions, which is the biggest thing. If you're not going to throw any touchdowns, don't throw any picks either, right? I mean, if you're going to do that, just don't throw any picks, right? Don't turn the ball over. And, to his credit, he didn't. The only turnover that the Raiders had was that Zamir White fumble that I talked about. And then Minshew was sacked twice as well. I thought, all in all, Luke Getsy, as much heat as he catches for his offensive game plan that he calls, I thought he did a pretty good job on Sunday. There was a few times where I thought, okay, they're getting a little bit conservative. They're trying to salt the game away. They're trying to, run out the clock. But for the most part, I thought he did pretty good. I thought he was pretty creative, especially when you don't have Davante Adams. They had to spread the ball around the yard a lot, and they did. And, of course, like I mentioned, the run game finally getting going. You got to give that offensive line a lot of credit for being able to not only protect Gardner Minshew pretty well, but also be able to open up some holes in the run game. Raiders defensively, they had 3 sacks on Watson. Isaiah Palomau, who got his first start. Charles Snowden got a sack as well. 2 weeks in a row that he's been able to get home, get to the quarterback. Christian Wilkins and Janarius Robinson, they split a sack each, so that's the 3. Deshaun Watson had a pretty pedestrian day, 24 for 32, 176 yards and a touchdown, and an interception. Was sacked 3 times, so thought the Raiders defense did a really good job. Old friend Amari Cooper lets a ball bounce off his chest. Stop me if you haven't heard that before. Let one bounce off his chest, and that's how Trayvon Merrick was able to come up with the interception, a big interception, because the Raiders took the ball down the field and turned it into points, turned it into a touchdown. So that was a big pivotal point in the game as well. And the Raiders held the Browns as a team to only 92 yards rushing. First game all season that they've held an opponent under 100 yards rushing. So, again, was it perfect? No. No Maxx Crosby is not going to be perfect. No Davante Adams is not going to be perfect. But for all the guys that had to step up, they all stepped up, and I thought they did a really good job. We talked a lot last week about business decisions, and Antonio Pierce said on Wednesday when he met with us that the business decisions had been made, but it was in-house. And a lot of people said, oh, it's just AP talking. He ain't really about that. He's just talking just to be talking. Well, Jack Jones didn't play in the first quarter. So I know a lot of people were on social media and they saw different videos of Jack Jones not making a tackle when he was supposed to, or not giving the effort to make a tackle that he should have been given. He didn't play in the first quarter. Nate Hobbs and Jacorian Bennett started on the outside, and then Darnay Holmes was in the slot. And so Jack Jones came in the second quarter. So that was part of the business decisions right there. All right, hey, you don't want to give an effort, you're not going to play the whole game, right? You're going to play. You'll start in the second quarter, and I'm sure that it will continue to evolve if Jack Jones continues to take plays off or doesn't give the effort that Antonio Pierce thinks that he should. I'm sure the punishment will be more severe, right? I mean, so that's just, at least he's holding them accountable, right? And again, I didn't know what was going to be the punishment, if there's going to be a punishment, but I thought that was good, and being able to trust and say, hey, look, yes, we like you. You're a really good player, but you have to give us 100%, or there's somebody behind you that will. So I thought that was a pretty good that for the first time offense that he sits the first quarter. So I don't know how much more accountability he's going to put on other players, but I think that at least he was able to step up and do that and let it be known that kind of effort will not be tolerated. And really, there was a few guys that you could have looked at, throughout the course of the game last week that you say, yeah, maybe the effort wasn't 100%. And I say it all the time, Davante Adams and his blocking is not very good. But obviously, Davante Adams is Davante Adams. So the Raiders don't have him to be a good blocker. But you would like to see him give 100% effort on blocking. And even when that interception happened last week, he didn't chase down the DB like he should have. He finally got into it, but it's not like he was really hustling up afterwards. So, it's just the accountability that I thought that Antonio Pierce put on Jack Jones. I thought that was important. And obviously, these guys are competitors, man. They all want to be out there playing. They don't want to be sitting at all and watching on the sideline, and that's what Jack Jones had to do for the first quarter. So with no Davante, no Max, who was it that stepped up? Instead of giving out game balls, we give out a little salutes to and shout-outs to these guys that stepped up. We'll do that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, which is Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. So if you're looking for last-minute tickets to the Raiders-Browns game, you could have got them by way of Gametime. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You tell them what you want, boom, you put it in there in the search, and you're good to go. Like I said, it filters out everything so you get right to the point, and you can find your tickets. You can get your tickets at a very reasonable price. They have great seat views. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy your tickets so you know exactly what you're getting before you buy. They also have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And, of course, your purchase is always covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticket industry. So what you need to do is take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create the account, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. It's all one word, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. This is normally on a Victory Monday when I'd hand out game balls. But as I was sitting in the press box at Allegiant Stadium and I'm watching this game unfold and the Raiders come away at the 20-16 victory, especially having that 4th and 3 stance right there by their own goal line pretty much, is something that they had to have. They had to come up with a big stop, and they were able to come up with a big stop. I just thought about all the guys that I saw contribute on Sunday that really stood out to me, that really impressed me. And so I don't want to just give a game ball to everybody, but I do want to make sure I mention everyone, shout them out and let it be known what they're doing. And honestly, it made me feel pretty good because I realized that maybe the Raiders' depth is a little bit better than even I thought it was the first 3 weeks of the season. So first of all, up front, on the offensive line, you had DJ Glaze at right tackle, and you had JPJ, Jackson Powers-Johnson, the rookie, at right guard. 2 rookies right next to each other, right tackle and right guard. And I remember in the pregame show, I was asking Vinny Bonsignore, he was my guest on the show, and I asked him, I said, if JPJ plays and DJ Turner or DJ Glaze plays, would you put them right next to each other? I prefer to have, a rookie over there at the left guard spot and then a rookie at the right tackle, not have 2 rookies side by side each other. But they were able to do it, and they were able to hold it down. And look, I mean, I'm not going to say that they were the only reason why the Raiders were able to have a run game on Sunday, but these guys play. They play at a high level, and all of a sudden the Raiders go for over 150 yards on the ground. So, I'm not going to say it's all on them, but I'm also not going to say that they're not a big contributor and a big reason why they had the success on the ground. DJ Turner, who I just mentioned, 1 carry, 18 yards and a touchdown. And the touchdown that he had, nice little end around, takes it 18 yards, some nifty running. But, man, Trey Tucker, shout out Trey Tucker for the downfield blocking that he was doing. So impressed by the blocking of Trey Tucker. He's continuing to mature right before my eyes. Like he's growing from the guy that he was in training camp in Costa Mesa when he was putting some balls on the ground. And I remember coming back saying, man, he's getting behind the DB, but he keeps dropping the ball. Now all of a sudden he's starting to become a reliable pass catcher, and then he's blocking downfield too. And that DJ Turner gets in the end zone because Trey Tucker has a really really good block. And DJ Turner also got behind a DB as well. Again, he knew that he had to step up because Davante was going to be out. He could have had a big play. It probably would have gone for 6 if Gardner Minshew had hit him. He didn't get him. He overthrew him. But, man, he was behind the receiver, and he's really been working, or the DB. He's been working on his wide receiver routes. He's been working on all of that a lot, trying to get that opportunity. He's always been good at special teams. He's always been fast, but now he's trying to put it all together as a wide receiver, and he got his opportunity on Sunday and made the most of it by getting into the end zone. I mentioned Trey Tucker. 5 catches, 6 targets, 41 yards, and had 1 carry for 3 yards and a touchdown. That was another little end around play that reverse, actually, it was a reverse, and he just, hey, I'm not going to get caught. I'm not going to get caught. There's no way that I'm going to get caught with my speed, right? And so that was a big play for him as well. I mentioned the blocking that he did on DJ Turner's. So, again, the Raiders were getting creative with their play calling, and especially the way that they were able to run the ball. On the defensive side of things, Tyree Wilson, we talk about Tyree and we talk about what he doesn't do, and he didn't register a sack on Sunday. I predicted 2.5 sacks for him. He didn't register a sack, but he was getting pressure on Deshaun Watson the whole game. 2 quarterback hits he had. He was getting held a lot too. He was out there letting it be known and putting his best foot forward, and he looks like he's getting quicker off the snap, off the line of scrimmage. He looks like he's getting better and better and better. Again, I'm not saying that all of a sudden he's going to turn into, the second coming to Maxx Crosby, but he's getting better. And to have the pressure that he did on Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun is slippery, man. He's a guy that's tough to get down. I mean, it's not like the guy doesn't have legs, right? I mean, even though earlier in the week he said, I'm not a running back, I'm a quarterback, I don't want to run. I kind of knew that was going to be, BS. I knew that he would, any chance he had an opportunity to get out of there and run, he would, because, like I said, he has plenty of wiggle. But wanted to shout out Tyree Wilson. I thought he did a really good job on Sunday. Again, no Maxx Crosby. Somebody's got to be able to step up. And defensively, multiple guys stepped up, including Charles Snowden. 1 sack and 3 quarterback hits. If you remember last week, he shot out of a cannon and ended up splitting a sack with Christian Wilkins. He looks like he's getting better and better and better. Remember, that's the guy we saw in the preseason. Remember when we were trying to project who was going to get released and who was going to get waived and who wasn't, and he ended up getting waived, and a lot of people were surprised, and then he cleared waivers, and the Raiders put him on the practice squad, and now he's been elevated to the 53-man roster. He's getting better and better and looking like that guy that he was looking like in preseason. So definitely shout out to Charles Snowden. Obviously had the big play at the end to preserve the victory. Him and Chason, got Watson to the ground. Good pursuit, really good pursuit. And like I said, the last 2 weeks, he's really stepped his game up. Janarius Robinson had a half a sack and a quarterback hit. So he split that sack with Christian Wilkins, who obviously is the big ticket free agent that the Raiders picked up. But and Christian is a dog, and he knew that his role was going to have to be bigger. We actually get to talk to him coming up later on this morning. We'll talk to AP at 11, but we'll talk to Wilkins right after him around 11:20. So Janarius Robinson, he stepped up. Isaiah Palomau, how about that? First career start, picked up a sack, always around the ball. Him and Nate Hobbs had a big 3rd and 4 breakup on a deep pass from Deshaun Watson. He just seems like that guy that's always around the ball. We were talking to him in the locker room after the game, and he even said that the first couple of plays he thought he was kind of not nervous, but it was almost like it was in practice, and he wasn't going 100 miles an hour like he was supposed to. And he said, it just took me, getting hit one time and then realized, okay, boom, let me snap out of it. And he did really good. First career start, stepped in for Marcus Epps, who's out with a torn ACL, and he's out for the season, and thought he did a really good job. Matter of fact, he looked better than Trayvon Merrick, who came up with the interception off a deflection, but he really looked good at that safety position out there. And, you can move him around. Obviously, they moved him around when he got to Deshaun Watson on that sack, but, he could play, the deep center field. He could play out by the line of scrimmage. They're able to move him around, and I know Patrick Graham likes to use him as a chess piece, and I'll definitely ask Antonio Pierce about him this morning when we get to meet with them. And then Jacorian Bennett, want to shout out JB. I actually wanted to play some locker room sound with JB. I got a chance to catch up with him after the game, but I think I'm running out of time, so I better not do that. But he had another pass breakup. It was on 3rd down, and he's one of the leaders in the league right now with pass breakups. I think the leader had 7 going into Sunday, and JB had 4, and 3 of his were on 3rd down. Well, he picked up another 3rd down one, and that's so important to be able to get that 3rd down pass breakup, right? And he's getting his hand in there, breaking up the ball on quick slants, and it was 3rd and 4. when he got his PBU, and it was just a really good play, and he has just been playing at a very high level all season long. We talked about it in great detail. We were seeing it in training camp. I kept saying every day after camp, I'm like, man, JB had another good day. JB had another good day. Had a really good preseason. He's continued to have a good season. And he even left the game. I didn't know if he had got, and I should have asked him afterwards, and I forgot, if he had like a dislocated shoulder or something. He walked off the field. It was a play that the Raiders got off the field. No, they didn't get off the field on that. I believe they got a sack on the play. And he comes walking off the field with the trainer, and they had his arm, and he was holding his arm almost like it was dislocated. And he went into the blue tent, and then he came back out and was on the field, and he continued and played the rest of the game and played really well, and he looked good in the locker room. So I'm sure there's no concern, but he looked fine when I got to talk to him in the Raiders locker room. I might be able to get that sound coming up on tomorrow's show. I really want you to hear what Jacory and Bennett had to say. I talked to a lot of players in their locker room after the game, as you can imagine. When they win games like that and improve to 2-2, it's usually a lot easier to get these guys to be willing to talk, and they don't scatter out of the locker room quick, fast, in a hurry. So JB was fantastic, and he's been fantastic all year long. So those are the guys I wanted to shout out. A bunch of young guys, young guys. DJ Glaze, Jackson Powers-Johnson, DJ Turner, Trey Tucker, Tyree Wilson, Charles Snowden, Janarius Robinson, Isaiah Palomar, Jacory and Bennett, all those guys, all young dudes, and all, young with this team, obviously. So if they're able to step up, and then you get a Maxx Crosby back and a Davante Adams back whenever they're able to return, you feel pretty good about your chances, because you're seeing the younger dudes, you're seeing the depth on the team really start to step up and take shape and take form. And that's what it's going to take, right? It's a long season. They're only through the first quarter. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be guys that go down. And when guys go down, you have to know that you have somebody who could step up. And on Sunday against the Browns, as the Raiders got the 20-16 victory, they had guys step up and make it happen. What's on your mind? Your calls and texts are coming up next. 707-654-4693 is coming up in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before I get to that, though, I do want to tell you about FanDuel. And all NFL fans, you can get into the season right now. I know 4 weeks are in the books, but you can get into it right now and get a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. You can get a hunch in the middle of the game. Like, say you saw the Raiders down 10. It was 10-0 Browns, and all of a sudden you got a hunch. Hey, man, here goes. The Raiders about to make a run. Well, all you got to do is check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And you can do all kind of in-game betting as well. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets. It's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start things off with a text from Michelle in the 951. She says, hey, Q, man, these Raiders love to give a fan a heart attack. But on a serious note, what is the possibility that AP sat his top players, Adams and Crosby, for 2 reasons? 1, to heal. 2, to force the other players on the team to step up. Make those backups work. Snowden with the final play. Palomar being a little ball hawk. Tucker and Turner showed up for some touchdowns. And not exactly related, but those rookies on the offensive line standing their own. JPJ and DJ Glaze had minor rookie mistakes, but stood their ground. It just felt like a moment for them to realize they were just as important as the top dogs, and they need to step up. It felt like a teaching moment, so they didn't rely on Maxx and Davante to carry the team. That's from Michelle in the 951. And it's funny, it goes kind of back to what I was talking about in segment number 2. And I think you're right. I think that, Maxx knows that, hey, he can't continue to always play when he has really bad injuries. And, him having that high ankle sprain, he clearly wasn't himself against the Carolina Panthers, had a big brace on his ankle, so he wasn't able to go. And, when we were out there on Wednesday and he wasn't out there practicing, and I remember hearing some of the players in the huddle say, hey, no Maxx, guys, we got to step up, no Maxx. I remember looking at Vinny Bonsignore saying, I wonder if they mean that for the game or just for practice today and maybe the rest of the week. Well, obviously, it was for the game. Davante tweaked his hamstring on Thursday, right before the end of practice, and I don't know if it was a no-go immediately, like they just knew he wasn't going to be able to go, or they said, like you said, hey, you know what, these other guys need to step up, right? And on top of that, it could have been one of those things where AP said, these guys, like you said, have to just step up and make it happen. So not going to risk Maxx for the long term, not going to risk Davante for the long term. I'm going to sit these guys, I'm going to hold them out, and Everyone else has to step up. So I'm sure there's a little something to it. But as you mentioned, the players that you mentioned, a lot of young dudes stepped up, as I was talking about in segment number 2. But thanks so much for the text. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Dan Freeman in Billings, Montana. He's calling to talk about the win and what he thinks the Raiders need to do more of in the fourth quarter. Here's Dan.
Hey, Q, it's Dan Freeman, Billings, Montana. That was a great win, great team effort. But we got to find a way to get Brock Bowers the ball in the fourth quarter and give Tucker a couple deep shots a game. But Jackson Price-Johnson had a few penalties, played well. And it was just a great win by the Raiders. We got Denver coming up next. Chance to get to 3-2. I'll be going to the Raiders-Steelers game, so I'm hoping to get to 3-2. We got to do enough on offense. I thought we were creative in the second quarter, and then in the third quarter, but then we didn't get anything in the fourth quarter. I think going forward, Alexander Madison needs to be the starting running back. He seems to be playing a lot better. Go Raiders, we won 2-2. I'll take that in 4 games.
Dan, thanks for the call. I appreciate you. And yeah, I would definitely like to see Bowers get more targets than 3. He only had 3 for the whole game, and he had 2 catches. And that first one, he dropped. The first play that Minshew went to him, it would have been a big one. Minshew rolled out. He did a really good job. He hit Bowers right where he was supposed to be, and Bowers tried to take off running and get a big play before he caught the ball. So he put it on the ground. It would have been a huge play. He probably would have gained 25, 30 yards easily. And unfortunately, it didn't go for any. And, look, if Davante's not out there, the one thing I know that defenses are going to do is locate number 89. That's something that they're always going to focus in on. Okay, well, no Davante. Now let's go look for number 89. So other guys like Jacoby Myers have to step up. He did. Trey Tucker had to step up. He did. DJ Turner, he stepped up. All these other guys have to step up. Other tight ends, stepped up. So, I mean, that was a big deal. It really was that there was other guys that were able to make plays, not named Brock Bowers. And, Madison, he might be the guy moving forward. I know he wasn't that great last year when he was in Minnesota, and he was the starting running back. He didn't do that great of a job, and it seems like he does more with less. I mean, look, 5 carries, 60 yards, and he's got, 3 touchdowns on the season already? Like it seems like he does a really good job in small spurts. But, again, they need to have days like they had on Sunday where the run game is dominant, right? 152 yards is what the Raiders generated. They found ways to run the ball. Zeus has to do a lot better. He has to do a lot better. I mean, he has 17 carries for only 50 yards. So he's got to continue to work. I mean, that running scheme that they're running is not one that's perfect for him, and it's not something that he's used to, but he's got to keep working at it to try to get where he needs to be. But thanks, Dan, for the call. I do appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Dricious in Clayton, North Carolina. Says, Q, what's good? I got no hair, so I can't lose it, but my eyebrows turning gray. This team, Q, I tell you. But what I saw was effort and fight. After being down, they fought back and showed resilience and held on. Backup stood up, and team gave effort and fought. It's not perfect, but it's a win, so I'll take it. I only hope they either stay consistent and don't get complacent, taking a step back, but improve with the returning players and beat Denver. Take care, Q. Just win, Raiders. That's Dricious in Clayton, North Carolina. And, yeah, again, that's the key, man, is that they fought, they were resilient, they got down 10-0, they found a way to rattle off 20 straight points, right? And it wasn't like you said, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't all the stars that made plays, but it was guys stepping up, doing the very best they could. The defense tightened up, gave the offense opportunities. The play calling I thought was good. It was a really good team effort to get it done. It was a lot more effort on Sunday than we saw last Sunday against the Carolina Panthers. If you saw that effort against the Carolina Panthers, the Raiders are probably 3-1 right now. And I know I can't keep going back to that, but that's the reality of it, right? They had a dud, and that was a bad dud. I do like the fact that they've won 2 games in the AFC conference, though. 2 AFC North games, as a matter of fact. They obviously have another one coming up this week with Denver. If you can collect as many AFC wins as possible, that's a great scenario right there. So, again, you're playing the long game. You're looking to see down the road what you have. Again, it's a race to 10, trying to get double-digit wins. But if you can't get double-digit wins, 9 might get you in the playoffs if they're the right wins. And the right wins are AFC conference wins. So thanks so much for that text. Definitely appreciate you. We'll close things out with a call from Emilio in Rancho Cordova. He's calling to talk about the win and the fact that it was a total team effort with guys like Maxx and Davante out of the game. Here he is, Emilio in Rancho Cordova.
Raiders, what's up, Q? This is Emilio from Rancho Cordova, man. A great team, all-around effort, man. We didn't have Maxx Crosby, we didn't have Davante Adams, but still, the Raiders still managed to take the W. And the defense really stepped up today with the interception and even right there at the end, causing Watson to be sacked right there. A great game all around. Was there some mess ups? Yeah, the offense pretty much stalled out at the end of the game, but our defense really went up to bat for them, and it feels good to get a win like this, instead of being on the other end of it, we're on the right side of it. So I just wanted to express my excitement and everything. Raiders did a really good job, man. Good team effort. Paulo stepping up with our safety being hurt. The defensive line stepping up with Maxx Crosby injured, and our wide receivers stepping up. Just good overall game, man. I'm excited, and I'm happy that we got the W today. So continue to do your thing, Q, and it's on to the next one. So let's go. But we can celebrate today. Let's go, Raider Nation. Raiders.
Emilio, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. And again, that's why I didn't hand out game balls, because I would have handed it out to all those guys that I talked about in segment number 2, all the young dudes that stood up and made plays, right? And it wasn't even, Brock Bowers only had three targets and 2 catches, so it wasn't even him when you expect him to be the guy that is always, going to be stuff in the stat sheet each and every week. It wasn't even him. It was just other guys, right? DJ Turners, the Trey Tuckers, right? Even Jacoby Myers, had a bunch of targets and had some good catches. And, he's just that guy, as I say all the time, and he says all the time, just finds a way to get open. But he had to be the number 1 wide receiver when Davante is out. And obviously, again, they're looking for 89. The defense is always going to look for 89, but Jacoby had to take that role again of being the number 1 wide receiver like he was when he was in New England before he arrived with the Raiders. And then there was some guy named Davante Adams across from him who's pretty good. But Jacoby did a good job. I thought everyone did a really good job, really good team effort getting that dub on Sunday and improving to 2-2 overall. And that's a big deal. You finished the first quarter of the season 2-2. There's some point if you want to make the playoffs, you got to go 3-1 in a certain quarter. If you go 2-2 the whole way, you're going to get 8 wins. Right? And you need to have more than that. So, they've got to find a way to go on a win streak. They can't just win one, lose one, win one, lose one. That's not going to work. But, the only way you can go on a winning streak, you have to get the first win. So they did against the Browns on Sunday. That was really good. Now they have a team on the road in Denver that they've beaten a bunch of times in a row. Doesn't mean they're going to keep beating them a bunch of times in a row. They're going to have to go out there and put a total team effort out there again. But it's really good to get through the first quarter of the season 2-2, especially after the way that they played on Sunday against the Panthers and the way the game started against the Browns on Sunday. Really good bounce back from the team. Again, we'll talk to Antonio Pierce around 11 o'clock this morning. We'll also talk to Christian Wilkins around 11:20. Anything good that he has to say from that, we'll definitely have on the show. We'll continue to talk about, who stood out and what that means for the team moving forward. Get a little injury update, hopefully, on Max and Davante, see if AP thinks they can come back anytime soon. We'll have plenty of conversation. We'll have plenty of calls and texts to get to as well. Again, the Raiders 2-2 after the first quarter of the season. It's not a bad thing. I think if you told Raider Nation that before the season started, I think most folks would definitely take that. So that's not a bad thing. Shout out to the Raiders for finding a way to get it done. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.